Hey, everybody, welcome to the CCW Safe Podcast. I am your host, Rob High, with my co-host there, Phillip Naiman. How you doing, Phil? Where you at today?
Doing great. I'm actually in Northern California, just west of Tahoe as we speak today.
Nice. And we are super thankful. We got a great guest for you today, Mr. Cecil Burch. Cecil is kind of a jack of all trades guy. He doesn't just study the one thing or the other thing, and it's not just how fast can I get my gun drawn from concealment, get one round and put it away and pretend like the fight is over. He actually kind of trains and prepares people for all aspects of those kind of encounters. So thanks so much, Cecil. Tell us a little bit about your background and what you do now.
So my whole life I've been a martial artist. I never wasn't law enforcement or military. Just an average guy. Once I got out of college, did the white collar professional job for 35 years. But ever since I started martial arts as a kid, I've never stopped. So this is my 44th year of continuous training of something. Since I started, there's never been a moment where I wasn't actively training a system under an instructor. At this point, I've literally done everything. Back, pre-internet days, the 80s, 90s, we went by whatever the cool magazine said, Inside Kung Fu, Black Belt, whatever they said, this is the most deadly fighting art. This is the most deadly instructor. I tried to figure out a way to train it. And usually, because especially back then, so much of the core part of martial arts was out of Southern California, and I've been in Phoenix all my whole life. I usually figured a way to train with either the top guy or his number 2 or number 3 guy. So I managed to get through all these, this system and this system and this one. I had instructor creds in a bunch of systems, a lot of Filipino martial arts, Indonesian martial arts, number of modern American eclectic street fighting arts. I did that for a very long time. And eventually I stumbled on sort of focusing on what people refer to as the combat sports, boxing, wrestling, and jiu-jitsu. And when I say boxing and wrestling, I mean the sister arts, I look at it as for me, it's not the individual system. So when I say boxing, I mean Western boxing, Thai boxing, Savate, Sanda. When I say wrestling, I mean judo, sambo, Greco, freestyle, folk style, all that stuff, all of it as that all has some validity in Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And the main reason is because it works. There's no taking it on faith with the combat sports. I know what it's like to get punched. I know what it's like to get choked out. I know what it's like to get hit with the planet. And I know what it's like to do it to people. I don't have to take it on faith. And I always thought it was funny that so many martial arts base their self-defense chance on faith. That's the wrong time. That's this art helped repel pirates in Southeast Asia 300 years ago. Cool. It may very well be true, but I can't practice it the same way. I can't rip out guys' throats. I can't attack their eyes.
You can't carry 2 coconuts everywhere you go.
Exactly. Right? Exactly. And it would be cool though. That'd be pretty cool. I'd probably be more like the Monty Python, the Holy Grail, with the coconuts more than using it as an offensive weapon.
As long as they don't taunt you in French, you're okay.
Exactly. So it just never, and it's fine. And I'm not denigrating those systems that do it. It's just, I'm not going to base my well-being or the well-being of my loved ones on faith. I want to know this stuff works. So that's what I focused on about the last 25 plus years or so. I've been doing jiu-jitsu for 30. And I was doing boxing and Thai boxing in the mid 80s. I did a bunch of boxing smokers here in Phoenix in 80, right at the end of college. So 87, 88, I did a few boxing smokers and stuff. So I've been doing it for a long time, but it was about after the last 25-ish to 30 years that I kind of figured out that should be the core of my self-defense system because I know this stuff works. Then it just becomes a question of how do we integrate this into a modern self-defense paradigm? Weapons involved either on either side or both, multiple opponents, and what are the legal ramifications? of doing this, because the only people worse than gun guys at understanding legal stuff is martial artists.
Yep.
At least gun guys, we've got Masad Ayub and guys like that, you know, preaching in the gun community that some people listen to. We don't have the equivalent of any of those guys in the martial arts world. So, you know, you get martial artists, you literally, I've had people tell me this, no, I don't carry a gun, Cecil, you shouldn't be doing that gun stuff. You know, it'll get you in trouble, you know, if you have to shoot somebody, but it's okay for me to carry 8 knives and shove all 8 of them to a guy's head. There's no legal consequences for that. And you go, what world are you living in? You know, so I've had to do the last 25 years or so. It's how does this all work together? And then I stumbled on teaching it and doing the traveling roadshow gig. And then it became, how do we then take all that and pass it on to somebody who can't train 3, 4, 5 hours a day, 5 days a week? You know, who's got a limited time? How do we get the same information across in the most efficient way? So it's this interesting journey where I went from a very selfish starting point of me, what works for me, to now a good chunk of my life is, how do I make this better for the next guy? How do I make this better for my students? Which part of me goes, no, stop doing that. You got to concentrate on yourself. But I do like teaching. I didn't think I was going to be I never set out to be a teacher. You know, it sort of fell into my lap, and I happened to really dig it.
Well, I like to give credit where credit is due. I've trained stuff my whole life. I'm 53 years into it now, almost 54. And it's just been a way of life for me and my brother and the guys I grew up with. The town that I grew up in, Midwest City, Oklahoma, was like the hotbed in the world for high school wrestling. I mean, it just was.
Makes sense. Totally makes sense.
And I wound up coaching there before I was a cop. And when I left, we had won 19 state titles in 23 years and 2 national championships.
Wow.
Pretty salty kids.
Yep.
And my interest into jits was the simple fact that there were things there that I could integrate into grappling, into wrestling, whether that was folk style or freestyle or Greco. And it was things that weren't in the norm in the wrestling world, unless you went to like an Eastern Bloc country, and they were utilizing a lot of stuff like that. They incorporated a lot of judo and sambo things in. But it was such a big deal for me just to kind of give my guys a little bit, you know, we're going to throw something at you that you've never seen before, so you haven't worked any kind of counter stuff. But when I became a cop, I was just astounded. My stand-up game is good. If you want to strike, we can strike, and if you want to go takedowns, we can go takedowns. I was comfortable walking into the police academy because I can defend myself. There was lots of guys that came in there that had nothing, you know, not even boxing in the military or you know, they trained on handguns before, but I mean, just no skills. Everybody's coming in just really with nothing to offer, really.
That's not true, because it's like K1, right? I mean, this is jumping roundhouse kick. This is flying kung fu kick. I mean,
Y, smash X, Y. But you're right. But I mean, but that's an important point. And that's why my own basis has been the combat sports, is because I know, you knew, nobody had to tell you, nobody had to convince you that you could fight. There was no, oh man, you see this dude on the street, man, he better be like walking in fear of you. It's like, you didn't have to have that guy pumping you up. You knew because you did it all the time.
Yes.
And that confidence comes out because it's not an outward directed ego, it's an inward directed confidence. And you go, I know, I don't have to worry. You get away from being a fear biter, because you truly know. It's like, this guy, I don't have to worry about this guy. I fight tougher guys than this. I fight younger guys. I fight bigger guys. I fight more experienced guys than this, 3-4 days a week at the academy on the mats, spar in the ring. I don't have to, this doesn't bother me.
Yes.
Whereas so much other of the martial arts I had done before that, it was very theoretical. Man, yeah, see, so man, when it goes full blast like this, you're going to be able to turn it on and really kill somebody. And you go, and there's the voice in the back of your head that goes, really? How do I know?
Yeah.
What if not? There's no what ifs.
It always comes down to, I mean, the famous quote by Mike Tyson, everybody has a plan till they get hit, right?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
how many times have you seen guys the first couple of seasons of a UFC, somebody might have a very skilled set in striking, but they get in against somebody that's a sumo guy, and it's,
yep,
it doesn't work,
Yep, it doesn't work. Whereas all the combat sports from day one, when you step foot in a gym, in a school where it's teaching some combat sport, you're doing it from day one. There's some level of physical pressure and oppositional will from the beginning. So then when it actually does happen, it's the difference between 95% and 100%. You go, whatever. It's not the difference between 2% and 100%. And in that case, now it's like, and you panic, you don't know what to do, you're scared to death. Again, you're a fear biter. You're more likely to strike out. You're more likely to use excessive force. You're more likely to use force when it's not warranted. And my late close brother William April always talked about, his thing was deselection. He goes, bad guys have a very straightforward binary choosing system for victims. It's yes or no. He goes, there's no maybe in theirs. If it's a maybe, it's a no. And so if you're giving off some signal that you're not prey, it might be so low key that it's even hard to define, but the bad guys know it, and they look at you and they go, nah, I'm going to wait for somebody who's giving off yes vibes, right? And that comes out. Before the show, we were talking about Paul Sharp, and he and I discussing stuff. One of the things he and I talked about, like 2007, was what's fascinating is the more you train, the deeper dive you go into legitimate fighting stuff, the less likely you are to use it for real. Because number one, you're spending more of your time, more of your free, stupid time, instead of at the bars or getting into trouble, you're on the mats, you're in the gym, you're lifting weights, you're running, you're doing all that stuff. So you're occupied. But the other aspect, again, is that comes out. There's something, and I don't want to go, warrior projecting. I don't even know. I don't even know what it is. But you know in your heart of hearts, and you project that outwards. Bad guys figure that out, right? Bad guys are awesome at being able to tell who's a victim and who's not. And all you have to do is just send out that little sonar ping to say, I'm not pure prey. And they're like, okay, cool. Pass you by.
Well, they are some of the foremost experts in the world at reading body language.
Yep.
It's a shark thing. I mean, they just see it. And one of our owners, Phillip, knows him, Stan Campbell, and Mike Darter as well. We all worked really aggressive street teams and focused on narcotics and gangs and stuff like that. And we would have upper command all the time asking, why? We know you guys do this stuff all the time. Why are your uses of force not up like this guy's over here? And it's like, well, we can teach them all the technique in the world, but I can't teach them to look.
Yep.
And that's really where it begins is, it's kind of a street thing, but you'll hear those kids saying real knows real.
Yep. 100%. And they might never be able to, like, if you asked them, well, describe that. They might never be able to articulate any of it.
Yes.
They'll just say real nose real, because they do.
Yes.
It's an inherent, intrinsic, whatever you want to call it, aura or whatever, vibe, energy, whatever. But they pick up on it because, like you said, they do it all the time. They have to survive.
They live in the animal kingdom.
Yep.
That's really what it is. I mean, they know where the weak one is, and they know that that's where they're gonna focus their attack. They know it is the animal kingdom.
Yep, 100%.
So that's the biggest deal to me is training people to learn how to not be a victim.
Yep.
You don't have to be Billy Badass, but
Nope.
but let's at least get you in the right lane to where you know that, as you're walking past somebody in the parking lot at the mall, something benign, and all of a sudden there's something that makes you uncomfortable. So you put your head down and you're submissive already, and don't do that. It's like lock eyes with them and tell them good afternoon. Hey, how you doing?
Yep.
Maybe a good exercise would be to go to Walmart or Home Depot in the parking lot with somebody like that and say, okay, you pick out who is prey and who's not, look, just see.
Yeah. And they'll hit it 100% every single time.
Yes. Yeah, they sure will.
It's just, it's a very interesting way of looking at stuff. And it's nobody articulates that when you start training.
Yeah.
It becomes something afterwards. You go, oh yeah, of course.
Yes. Yeah. I have a confidence that I've never had before.
Yep. And that's my frustration a lot in teaching this over the years, is that, you get people who either because of ego reasons or they actually don't know and they're worried about getting hurt. They're like, oh, I can't do this. I don't have time. I can't, blah, blah, blah. And you're like, dude, I'm not trying to get you to be the black belt adult heavyweight world champion of jiu-jitsu. I'm not interested in teaching you that. I'm interested in making you a tiny bit more dangerous, a tiny bit more capable, a tiny bit more safer than you were the day before. And we're talking about fractions. It's just a continuing adding of fractions. And every one of those is like compounded interest. You get a teeny bit better this day, and then a month later, you add a teeny bit. Well, it's exponentially put into that system where it's projected outwards. And the more you do it, you're on the mat, you're getting thrown around. Oh man, every day I get on the mat, I get beat up. Yeah. But you know what happens? You also then look around and you go, well, that kid over there, that kid who used to bother me, if I'd have seen him a year ago, I'm like, oh, I fight guys tougher than him all the time. And I can survive against them. Yes. He's nothing. And it's just this little thing. And you try to get that across to people. It's like, just try to be a teeny bit better than you were. You don't have to be me. You don't have to dedicate, a major chunk of your life for 44 years to do this. You don't have to train 5 days a week, but just put a little bit of time into this. And you don't have to train like a professional athlete, right? Yeah, we all have to worry about getting hurt. Well, you train with anybody reasonable. You train with anybody decent. You're not going to have that issue. You go to any decent jiu-jitsu academy, any decent, good, legitimate MMA school, judo school, whatever. You're not going to get beat up. Oh, you get injured. Okay, you get a fat lip here, Oh, I torqued my elbow. Whatever. Oh, I popped a rib. It's uncomfortable for 3 weeks. You're
Got
not
my finger torn off. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Just don't wear wedding rings when you're trying to roll.
I know that.
Yeah, I've seen it once and I never want to see it again. But you don't have to be doing this all the time, and you don't have to do it in a way that you're gonna get hurt. Your ego is gonna get destroyed. Yeah, and that holds a lot of people back. But I don't know. I haven't found an answer to talk to that person yet. The one who's giving you every possible excuse, and you shoot every excuse down.
Yeah.
They still are still looking for that excuse.
Yeah. I promise you wouldn't get hurt. I didn't promise you wouldn't get butt hurt, but
yeah, exactly.
I don't know if we can say that on this.
Well,
But that's true. But that actually is the way to look at it. Is you're not going to get seriously hurt, but your ego is going to get crushed on a regular. My ego is crushed all the time. At my academy, we're just working this material that if you'd have showed this to me 10 years ago, I would have said, get out of here. This is so stupid. It doesn't work. It's a stupid move. And they were playing with it last night, and I'm hitting it on other black belts. And I'm like, I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I missed the entirety of this position. I misunderstood the application of this position. Man, I left the academy last night driving home going, wow, what else am I wrong about? You know, and this is 30 years of jujitsu, and I could still miss that point. So, but in a weird way, I love that ego crush, right? Because I can never get bored at jujitsu. You can never really get, even for the most part, I think you can't get bored in the combat sports. Because even on like boxing, which basically has 5 offensive moves, essentially, there's always the variability of other people. So it's always new. Every time you put on the gloves, step in the ring, it's always new. Jiu-jitsu is the same, even exponentially, because we got 600 plus techniques, right? So there's always stuff, and there's always stuff being invented. So I love that. It's like, oh, there's more to learn. I don't know it all. Awesome. I can't get complacent. You know, I can't be the, 8th degree kung fu master with the ginormous belly sitting on the side going, yeah, don't make me mad, or I'm going to use my secret techniques on you.
This belly has death touch.
Yeah, exactly. With the combat sports, you have to put up or shut up every single day. The mat does not lie. And so you can never pretend. And for me, I love that. I just think that's the greatest thing on the planet.
I think I'm going to study the death touch. I mean, I like these fat guys that just turn around and everybody in the room falls over. I mean,
I'd love that. I wish I could have that.
I need to do, because that's got little effort and great reward. So it's got to be real. I'm going to go for that.
Yep, exactly. Obviously, it's real because they're throwing those people around.
Yeah. Effortlessly.
Yeah.
Like their training habits.
I think it's his body odor that just makes him faint. Could be part of the equation.
Could be. Come close enough, and you're like, no, I'm out of here. No. Yeah. Could be.
One of the ways that I changed kind of the way I would sell something with newer people is, I'm not here to make you tougher. I'm not here to make you a badass walking the streets. All I want to do is be successful in making you harder to kill.
Yep.
And let's just take, like you were talking about, we'll just take those little fractions. Give me just a little win today. That's it.
Yep.
I'll build on that.
Yep.
It's
the Japanese concept Kaizen, right? Mm-hmm. The idea of each is incremental progress. It might be 1/10 of 1%, but each day you're moving forward that 1/10. You're never going backwards. You're never stagnating. And I'm like, man, what a great way to train for life, right? I don't have an end state, right? Mastery is a journey. It's not a destination, and it's not a sprint, right? It's just like this ongoing marathon. So why do I have to get to here? Why do I have to be this at X point? As long as I'm 1/10 of 1% better than I was yesterday, man, how great is that? Yeah. It's a much more real world way of thinking of training, right? Oh, I got to get my 2 hours of dry fire in this week. But it was really tough this week at work, and this is going on. And, I got sick for a few days, and now I got to, no. Don't worry about that. Yesterday is yesterday. Today is today. What can you do today? Don't worry about even tomorrow. Maybe prep. Hey, if I get my gear out, if I get my dry fire gear set up, so before I head to the office in the morning, it's right there and I can just throw everything on and get a quick 5-minute session. Okay, yeah. Think about tomorrow that way, but don't worry about it. Just go, what can you do today? Oh, man, I don't have any time. Okay, I'm going to do 10 burpees. Great. You do that, right? You do 10 hip escapes, just a jiu-jitsu movement. You do that. That's better. Stand up and base 10 times. So much better than you did if you didn't do it. You know, there's lots of times when, especially in the old day job, after the last few years after my mom passed away, and I'm working 60 plus hours a week and just emotional stress of keeping the family business going and all that kind of stuff. I come home and there's days I didn't want to do anything.
Yeah.
But you know what I could do? I could take my carry gear off, unload, be super safe, run to the garage, and get in 1 minute of dry fire. Just not even trigger press, just master grip and draw.
Yes.
Okay, good. Boom. I'm done. Okay. Was that a lot? No. But man, it was 10 reps more than I would have had if I just had said, too tired today.
Yeah.
You know, oh, I can't do a 2-hour session. Yeah. So I can do a 10-second session. You know, you just move forward little bit by little bit, especially because the way I view it is like, we have so much that we have to at least have a teeny bit of skill set in, right? All the way from pre-fight threat containment, all the way up to shooting, right? And everything along that continuum, and the integration of everything, which is its own thing. Just because you're a good shooter and a good grappler doesn't mean you understand entangled weapon fighting, because it's its own world. So you have to put all that, you have to, what's that?
It's horribly different.
Yeah, it's horribly different. And I've taught it, you know, I've taught it for 20 plus years, and I'll go into a jiu-jitsu academy, a really good jiu-jitsu academy with really good guys, good competitors and good athletes. And I give their training partner a knife or a gun. And then I go, okay, roll. And that training partner is a white belt or a blue belt, and they're going with a brown belt or a black belt. And there's a really good chance that that brown belt and black belt gets rung up.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
You know, because it's a totally its own thing. It's no different than, okay, you're the best shooter in the world. You're great, right? You're Rob Latham. You burn it down. But if you can't get that gun out, or there's no legal justification to go to deadly force at that moment, you're screwed, because you've never trained anything else. You only do the shooting. And it's each one of these things is a different skill set. We got to do all of that at some point. You have to have at least some experience with it. Don't make the actual thing your first experience at one of these horrible situations. But it's hard to train. So how do we do it? Well, all right, today I'm just going to do 2 minutes of this. And then tomorrow I can squeeze in a half-hour session of this. And then the next day, blah, 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 you know. But I'm not in any hurry to do it. I'm in a hurry. There's an urgency, but I don't expect to be awesome tomorrow. Right? Just bit by bit.
When it comes to defending against a knife, I think 2 minutes a day of sprints is a good defense.
There you go.
Just sprint away from the dang knife as fast as you can, as far as you can. Because, you know, like you said, you've got a white belt, you give him a 6-inch plastic blade and put lipstick on the edge of it, and your black belt is lit up all over the place. That's somebody with 10 years of experience. It's just a knife comes into play. I think it's absolutely unrealistic unless you back is against the wall to go hands on. I mean, I don't care how good you are, you're going to bleed a little bit.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yep.
We had, Stan and I both went through an invitation only defensive tactics instructor course, 50 hours a week, for 5 weeks. And we just got beat up. But one of the guys running the class was one of the premier knife fighting guys in the world. He taught a lot of hand-to-hand stuff in the teams while he was in the Navy. He was on the teams for a couple of decades. Had been a collegiate wrestler, had made the team as an Olympian. I mean, this guy is formidable, and he'll show you scars. And then just understand there's no way, if you're going to be involved in this and you cannot avoid complete physical contact, you are going to get wet. Very simple way of saying it, but It's a true thing. I mean,
Yep.
it's just part of how it goes. One of the things I really wanted to touch on that I think is so cool, because you've seen it, I've seen it. We've all in the training world have seen those guys that need to impress. They need to stress you. They need to do this. And we lose so many people that really had an honest interest pursuing this step.
Yep.
And we've made it something that they don't even want to be a part of.
Yep.
And it's something that I was talking earlier. I tip my hat to Cecil on this, because he makes it an inviting space. He makes it a safe place. And it's just get in and let's just make you that much harder to kill, just a tiny bit.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, you don't have that kind of pressure. And it's like, I want to do that.
Yep.
So that's a big deal. I mean, that's just to not start somebody off, your initial indoctrination is your first training scar. I mean, why do we do that to people?
Yeah. It physically hurts. It physically hurts me when I see that. I mean,
yeah. Yes,
there's a visceral pain
yes.
where I go,
Why?
We just lost that person.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah. And it's just, it's a sad commentary where we as instructors put our own ego ahead of what the student needs. Right. And it's one of my personal pet peeves. I think we're at this golden age of training now, that so not just how much is available and how easily accessible, but what a wide variety. At no time in history as we had the ability to do literally all this stuff anybody can do within a year. You could hit a ton of different things. And we've got all these new people coming into it as instructors, but too many of them are coming in because they want to hang the shingle out as an instructor. They want to hang that out and go, oh, I'm an instructor. Look at me, pat myself on the back, or I'm going to make a ton of money, which is a joke because that doesn't happen. But that's the last thing you should be thinking of. Everything should be, can I make somebody better? Can I make somebody more safe? Can I make somebody more capable, more dangerous to bad guys? If the answer is yes, then be an instructor. If the answer is I'm not sure, then you got to work at it, or don't be an instructor.
What's your reason? What's your purpose?
Yeah. And your purpose better be, I really want this person to be better. I know what this art, especially like jujitsu, right? I'm super pro proselytizing jujitsu. I know what it's done for me personally over the last 30 years. And I know what it can do. And I've seen it help literally thousands of people, not just in a fighting sense, but in a real world, making yourself a better person sense.
Yes.
And so I'm like this believer in it. And anytime I hear a story where somebody's like, yeah, I went to jiu-jitsu for a couple months and I got hurt. I didn't feel like I was learning anything, blah, blah, blah. So I left, and I was like, oh, we're never getting that person back.
Yeah.
We're never, that person has just wrote us off. And anytime we say that anybody can do this, blah, 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 they're like, you're a liar, Cecil. And that bugs me, because I know it's not true. Anybody can get better. You just have to have the right, like you said, you have to have the starting environment in the beginning.
Yeah. We've got, I don't know, we've got such a great community that even if I wasn't in the position where it was like, I really need to improve at being harder to kill. I need to be better at my role as a protector and the man in my house that I can protect my family, and because truly that the only time I'd ever really go all the way to the dark side would be if somebody hurt my family. And I could go dark really quick.
Yep.
That's not ever my intent. It's always just but when I left law enforcement is such an incestuous environment training wise. And you don't want to question somebody. Well, I'd say something and Cecil might take offense to that, or I'll lose all credibility because I spoke out against something stupid that Cecil's doing.
Yep.
And it is so cliquey. And we've discussed many times on selecting an instructor, selecting a trainer for our members and the guys that are out there looking for the next step in their journey. And how do I make this? That's a really big deal. And I'd only seen the law enforcement community for decades. And now I'm just a couple of years out and into this world.
Yep.
And the 2A community and the training establishment is so far ahead of where law enforcement is. They're a quantum leap ahead. We're still having people stand there and not move and draw and take your time and back in the holster. And that's great for the fundamental aspect of it, but we don't train people to be a gunfighter. We just don't. We don't have the time. We don't have the money. Training budgets are always the first thing to get slashed, and then to get into because I've trained my whole life. It's just been part of my makeup. But I get in there now, and TACCon this year, it was just like, oh my gosh, what an amazing community. And I'm not talking about just the instructor cadre. That's top shelf across the board. But
except for like Craig Douglas and Larry Lindemann, those guys are losers. That was just an editorial comment I threw in.
They're still working their way into it.
Exactly.
Yeah,
they're following in my footsteps, hoping to be me.
They're gonna get there one day. Have faith.
Yeah.
But just the paid attendees, the guys that are there trying to better themselves. And the coolest thing to me is looking at all the instructors that are there bettering themselves. And I'm not talking about teaching a class for Tom. I'm talking about they're there as an attendee.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the very first thing that happened the other day when they posted the stuff and said, the registration starts at 6 p.m.
Yep.
I was signed in by 6:02. I'm registered. I'm good to go. Like,
nice.
Holy crap. And I knew there was something to it because I knew too many people whose opinions I value remarkably highly that we're talking about. This is a piece you need to go to. You don't need to miss this one.
Yeah.
And yeah, absolutely sold right out of the box. I mean, such a great environment, such a great event. And then Dallas Pistol Club did a remarkable job of hosting. So,
the last, what are we there now? 3 years? Oh my God. That was my 11th TACCon, I think. And the 3 years of Dallas Pistol Club, above it all, is the best place to have it.
Yeah.
It's the best for everything across the board. Outside of not being able to shoot like carbine, it's the best facility we've had, the easiest to deal with. It's great. That place is awesome.
Yeah, that's nice. We got Phil down there hanging out, and Phil has actually really started kind of ramping up his training stuff. You got any advice for him? How long have you been rolling now, Phil?
A couple of years.
Oh, nice.
Blue belt in jiu-jitsu, but
nice. The blue belt is the best belt. I tell people, stay a blue belt for the rest of your life. because
I've had some major setbacks injury wise, so I think I might be staying blue belt the rest of my life.
Here's the thing: it's the best comfort level of. So
Yeah.
You tell everybody by seeing you got a blue belt. Everybody realizes you've trained enough.
He's
You've put
formidable.
enough dedication in that you've done something, but you're still a blue belt. So nobody expects anything out of you, and nobody worries about that they have to smash you. It's as soon as you get purple belt and above, everybody's like, "Oh, I got to take this guy seriously." Smash, smash. Nope, I'm going to make sure you're not too big for your britches. But blue belt, you're like, "Oh, okay, hey, this guy, okay, he's not a beginner. He's still training. Cool. I'll be nice to him. We'll roll nice. I'll help him out. I'll give him some tips." Blue belt, hands down, is the best belt to stay at in jiu-jitsu. It's great.
Well, I'm gonna take that as life advice then.
Oh, it's the best. I always go back, man, I wish I could give back all my belts and just be like a 3-stripe blue belt. Just walk around that way.
Well, and you're right. Everybody knows you're blue, then you are formidable.
You're decent. The thing in jiu-jitsu is, we're so used to people quitting, right? Guy comes in, month, 2 months, and then he disappears. You're like, oh man, that's so frustrating. The guy was getting it. The guy was just starting. He could have been something, and then he quits. Whereas the blue belt, you're like, all right, you might not have started off as the most talented or whatever, but you just kept plugging away. That was me, right? I always tell people I'm the worst person that's ever stepped on a jiu-jitsu mat. Right? I've never had any physical attributes. I have, when you add up physical attributes, I'm always at the bottom of the list. I was the kid picked last in dodgeball and PE in high school, right? And I didn't have any, and I had, was born with severe asthma all my life. So everything's been stacked against me. The only reason I got to where I am now as a third degree black belt in jiu-jitsu literally is because I didn't quit. I just kept showing up. Some days, man, I was the windshield, but more often I was the bug. But it didn't matter. It didn't matter. I just kept showing up, and things you get. That's the secret of jiu-jitsu. Here's the dirty secret, the thing that we hide from everybody. Here's how you become a black belt. Just keep training. That's it. I just gave you the secret sauce of jiu-jitsu. You step on the mat and you stay on the mat, you'll be a black belt. Anybody, don't care who it is.
Yeah, one of our owners' little girls. I say little girl. She's a beautiful grown woman now, but when she was a little girl, I think she was about 7, and he actually asked her in class, what can you tell me what a black belt is, what a black belt means? And she just had this pretty little smile, and she goes, "Daddy, it's just a white belt that never quit."
That's 100%. That is.
There you go. That's what we do.
That is 100% true.
We have kind of an open window now for the next couple of months. We got JJ Rakaza coming out to our place
Cool.
next month.
Cool.
Tom is coming out doing I think he's doing instructor development at our
okay.
But we still got plenty of good stuff on the horizon. And
Yes.
As we were talking before we started up, we want to really make an effort to get Cecil out to our place and open that up for people in the Southwest here that can get an opportunity to come in and get some really, really good training. So, Phil, you got anything else you want on your plate there that you want to get out, or
But just so Cecil, in Phoenix, do you have a specific place you train at all the time?
Yeah, I opened my own academy 7 months ago. I ditched the day job, the 35-year-long day job, turned the family business over to my brother, and I just went all in. I was tired of being the corporate dude. And
your name of your facility is
Gracie Jiu-Jitsu North Phoenix.
Very good.
That's our academy. I always wanted a cool name, right? I actually wanted to call it Kaizen Jiu-Jitsu. That was always in my head. I thought that would be a great name for a jiu-jitsu place. But the reality of the commercial world is Google will find you based on how people search for you. So if you put your location in the name, you're much more likely to pop up right at the top on Google when people go, oh, jiu-jitsu in Phoenix, kapow. So I don't have any cool academy name. It's just, it's easy. It's easy
Subtitle.
for us to pop up.
Subtitle.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, but yeah, I've had done that. We're just hit the 7-month mark on that one. And, you know, it's been, outside of my wife and kids, it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me. It's been phenomenal. So right now the focus is still building the academy. So a lot of my focus there is just straight jujitsu at the moment. I'm hoping by the summer to add in essentially an entangled weapons class as a weekly offering. But I don't have the time and the energy yet. I gotta make sure we're profitable enough to I can make a living at it. So I'm pumping that, doing that, doing the straight jujitsu stuff, and then we'll add the nice ECQC level class once a week or twice a week, depending on stuff. I'll probably add at some point, at the very least, a monthly managing unknown contacts class, because I think that's the single most useful skill that we could have as a with the idea of self-preservation. And nobody ever practices it, right? Number one, it's very hard to learn, right? There's not a lot of places you can learn true muck as Craig Douglas, developed and created the paradigm. And then okay, you get it in a class. You get it in my close contact handgun class, which is basically all we do is muck for a day and a half. And then with UTM guns as the penalty if you screw it up. And you get it in Craig's ECQC. And then, Paul teaches it out at MDoc and stuff. Out of that, you don't get to do it. And it's such a hard skill set, because you basically have to have the verbal dexterity of a stand-up comedian dealing with hecklers. That's really what you're doing. That doesn't come overnight, and it certainly doesn't come natural to most people. It didn't come natural to me. So just a weekly class of learning how to interact with potentially hostile unknown, I think would be a really useful class. It'll never be a big seller. It'll never be my biggest class, I'll tell you, which is the sad part. Yeah. To me, that's truly the sad part, is it will be the least attended class I teach on a weekly basis. I absolutely guarantee it. Because I'll get enough people to do the full-on fighting thing. Let's go with UTMs. Let's put the fist helmet on. Let's put gloves on and let's fight. I'll get enough people to do that just for the interest of, yeah, let's do that. But muck, which we pretty much would use on a daily basis and will keep us from doing all the bad, violent stuff. People are like, yeah, whatever. Either I already know it or I don't need it. That's 98% of the people.
It's crazy. When I was in the police academy, they are hounding us about keeping a fight standing.
Yeah.
Keep it on your feet, keep it on your feet, keep it on your feet. And then as you start going through the classroom portion of it, the book portion of it, and you're looking at all the statistics, 85% of all law enforcement altercations go to the ground.
Yeah.
Keep it on your feet, idiot. Keep it on your feet.
Yeah.
It's like, we're going to do all this practice on our feet, and we're not going to do any training for the 85% of where we're going to be. Yeah. I just thought that was absolutely.
And even if your fight is successful, you have to go to the ground to cuff the guy.
Mostly. Yeah. Most of the time.
Yeah.
And we had kind of our own, kind of our own big news media debacle on a use of force that, and I had just taken over as the coordinator for our defensive tactics program. And it was one of those that my first academy class teaching these kids, and the director of training comes down and says, I need you to come upstairs and look at a video. I said, be happy to. We're going to break for lunch in 15 minutes and I'll be right up there. And he goes, nope, right now. Well, that's a big deal. And I said, where's this from? Where did this occur? And he goes, our officers last night. I said, okay. Start up the stairs following him. And then he stops midway and turns around and goes, I just need to know two things from you. Why the crap you guys teach doesn't work, and what these guys did wrong. Okie doke. So crazy as it was, we get up there and we look at the video and you know, did they do anything wrong? Yes, sir. What did they do wrong? Well, we train guys that when you use a baton as an impact weapon, to hit them as hard as you possibly can. Neither one of them hit anybody like was close to their full ability. And if you promise me that you'll swing like that, you can hit me with your stick right now.
Well,
And it wasn't the answer he was looking for. And then he said, why does the stuff you teach not work? And it's like, because we've been handcuffed. We have enough time to teach them just enough to manage people of average size, average strength, and zero skill set. But that changed and opened that window for us to where those guys have continued running with that. And I've been in defensive tactics courses all over the United States, even what's supposed to be the best of the best. And I can tell you, we've got the strongest program I've ever seen now.
that's cool.
But it took, you know, an embarrassing incident to open the door to get to do that. And you know, when they said, well, which direction are you going to go? What are you going to do with it? Well, there's certain things by the state agency to maintain our certification. We have to do their things, but on top of that, we incorporated Western boxing, Muay Thai, jits, judo, and all aspects of wrestling. And it's not just a little 2-week block in the middle of an academy. It's something that they do start to finish all the way through. So for 7 months, that's a pretty good time to get people grounded and on the right path. And I've been so proud with how many of those guys, you know, you can go up there on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and it's like open mat, and you got a full-size gym with wall-to-wall mats, and you know, you may have 12 black belts in the room and 20 brown belts and anything and everything on top of that. You know as well as anybody else, that's a salty room right there.
Yep.
There's not a lot of clubs that you're going to go into that have that level of experience. So
yep.
But there's plenty of places that are out there. Cecil's has got one. You're talking about Paul's got a good place.
Yep.
It's just it's things that you have to be intentional about. You have to be deliberate. So it doesn't have to be. I don't have to advance a belt, you know, in the next month.
No,
I don't ever have to. Matter of fact, the easiest way to go about that is like you were talking about earlier, and it's just get involved, start plugging in, make it a part of your regimen that it's just, I'm just going to commit.
Yeah.
And before you know it, you keep showing up, and even though you're not Joe the natural born athlete, over time you've become harder to kill, and the guys in the room know it. So that's a big thing. We always encourage guys to get out there and pick up and refine whatever skill sets they have, or pick up the ones that they need. But if you're going to carry a firearm, most of the encounters that come your way are not of the lethal force encounters.
I mean, that's empirical data that says that. That's not your theory. That's not my hypothesis. That's you just look at the actual crime numbers and you go, the super majority of those instances do not rise to the level of lethal force. And even and here's the thing that I think gets lost in too much in our community. when we get so focused on shooting, which, do not get me wrong, that is an important skill set. And
Yes.
I am a huge believer in carrying on a daily basis. When I was operating for 35 years in a non-permissive environment, not a legal MPE for the most part, but a social and financial MPE, I still carried. I still found a way to carry. Now, when I can dress how I want, it's even easier, right? So I'm a definite believer. I'm a definite believer in you need to take shooting classes. Go train with Tim Herring. Go train with Scott Jedlinski. Go train with Kyle Lamb. Go train with these guys. I'm a huge believer. Go shoot USPSA, IDPA. Go do this stuff. I'm a believer in it. However, we need to think of the firearm as the seatbelt. It's, when we need a seatbelt, there's literally seatbelts and airbags. When we need them, there's nothing that will substitute for seatbelts and airbags. Nothing. But we don't want to use them. How about let's spending a good chunk of our time and energy and thought into avoiding that crash as best as possible, right? The whole concept of defensive driving.
Yep.
Right? That's what it is. It's, let's not test our safety mechanisms of our vehicle. Let's avoid it. Let's have the best we can. Make sure they work. Put that seatbelt on every time you get in the car, but let's not rely on it. Same with the gun. Have the other skill sets of at some level. You don't have to have all of them. You don't have to be world-class comedian dealing with hecklers. You don't have to be a national level power lifter or Olympic lifter. You don't have to be a GM shooter. You don't have to be a black belt in jiu-jitsu. You don't have to be a D1 champion in wrestling. You don't have to be a Golden Gloves boxer. You don't have to be like 20-year knife expert. You don't have to be at that level in any of them.
Yep.
But have a teeny bit of skill in all of them. And more importantly, like I said before, figure out how they all work together.
Yep.
Right? Well, where do they belong on the continuum? Because they're all different. You cannot replace one of these skill sets with something else.
Yep.
Right? You can't say, well, I have OC spray and a gun, I'm covered. No, you're covered for a good amount of stuff, but OC does not replace a knife, does not replace an impact weapon, does not replace hand-to-hand skills, does not replace pre-fight threat containment skills. Right? The gun doesn't replace any of that. Hand-to-hand skills don't replace OC or a gun.
Yeah.
They're all their own category. And so you can say, hey, I don't have time to do X. Okay. Limit your hand-to-hand skills. All right, cool. But put more time then into your pre-fight skills. And I would argue put more time into your physical conditioning then. Right? Then maybe you don't need the hand-to-hand skills because you don't look like prey. You can do whatever, but understand if you have a gap, it is a gap. And don't rationalize it to yourself or to somebody else that, oh, I don't need that. No, just say, yeah, right now, hey, I don't carry OC. So, I'll just have to deal with that. Okay, cool. I'm not going to, I'm not the tactical Gestapo. I don't get to dictate what your carry and your training plan is, but just be honest to the problem, right? Be honest to what the situation is and go, okay, I'm not going to carry I don't want to carry a knife for self-defense. All right, cool. Don't. But you need to understand that there's a context in which the only weapon you're going to be able to access is a small fixed blade knife. Not a folder, not this, not a gun, not a sap. You're only going to be able to get a small fixed blade knife out. And you don't have that? Okay, cool. But just understand if you're there, you better have something to replace to at least surround that environment with. And just do something. Just build a little bit. Spend the time. Larry Lindemann always talks about, don't worry about the little rocks, the little pebbles, build around big rocks. Okay, so you want to be a shooter. Awesome. Spend a good chunk of your time being a shooter. But then look at a couple other things you should pay attention to too. Maybe pre-fight, strength and conditioning. And when I say that, I'm not talking about like being, national champion CrossFit dude or whatever. Just having a reasonable level of fitness to get through life,
Yes.
right? And be a good shooter. Okay, cool. So I got 3 big rocks, and then have at least a few little pebbles along that way too, just to have something, right? Just train, right? That's what here's the sum of the podcast with Cecil. Just train, pick something and train. I'm never gonna, if you're training something, I'm gonna shut up. It may not be what I prefer
Get that
myself.
much better today.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Just do something. And we're all, because here's the thing. If you're training to be 1/10 of 1% better, and I'm training to be 1/10 of 1%, and everybody else is, we're all getting better. We're all more dangerous. And if we're all the good people are that much more dangerous, you know what that means? More bad guys are scared of us. And,
Yeah.
and the fewer
Our
bad
world
guys,
safer.
yeah. And fewer bad guys are going to try to mess with people, because they're going to go, oh, this guy's, he's giving off those signals, right? That's the win for everybody. So you don't have to be jiu-jitsu black belts, or you don't have to be GMs. Just do something. I don't care.
Yeah. Good stuff, brother. Man, thank you so much for giving us your time and
Oh,
coming
you
on,
bet.
sharing a little wisdom with our folks.
You bet. I enjoy it. I love talking about this stuff.
Me too, brother. Me too. Like to welcome everybody back next week. We thank you guys for tuning in, and we will, as always, accept any kind of criticisms or complaints or congrats or anything else. You can reach me directly at rob@ccwsafe.com. And we thank you so much. We'll see you next go around. Thanks, guys.